Am I the a-hole? Wife's sister lets her kids run wild and destroy my house during family dinners, so I voice my opinion. My wife has her siblings over for dinner every week, 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Only one is married with kids. These kids are not parented at all. Many times we have to stop a child from serious injury because their parents just forget they exist. Tonight I bought a cake for my wife's birthday that is next week, since I will be leaving town for work and missing the date I wanted to celebrate. The oldest of the little guys, 6, starts literally pounding the floor full-blown tantrum that I won't let him carry the cake lit with candles to the table. I ignore and proceed. After cutting the cake and bringing my wife her piece, the little brat jumps up and smashes his toy truck down into the middle of it. I get my wife another, but she just eats around it and says she doesn't mind. I brush it off. Minutes later, the toddler kid Hash 3 is seen running through my great room with a spoonful of icing that his mom gave him. And another child, Hash 2, is using an egg roll as a missile, smashing it into my walls. My wife permits this anarchy. I keep my mouth shut as usual. After the circus leaves our house, I'm cleaning up and doing dishes by myself. My wife walks in and she sighs relief that they are gone. I made the mistake of venting how frustrated I am that her sister, her husband, and children have zero respect for our home. The response was a rage-filled screaming match about how absolutely terrible I am, and that she will make sure her sister's family is never present when I am home. Edit. Background. My wife usually cooks and cleans up after her family get-togethers. This time I chose to take over. I do my best to assist in prep and cleanup. I get that even though I am home only half the month, I still need to engage in the household duties. I try to make up for my absence when I'm home. Edit 2. Many of you have mentioned that I should let her threat of never having them over when I'm home come true. It's an empty threat meant to make me fearful of her running down my character to her family and friends.
Not the a-hole. These kids' behavior is out of control. You do not have to put up with this in your home. I'm sorry your wife finds it acceptable. When things calm down, the 2 of you need to discuss this calmly and establish boundaries. The answer is not letting them come over and damage your home when you aren't there.
My wife refuses to set boundaries with her siblings. We have been married 18 years, and I am regrettably a famous pushover for letting them get away with whatever they want. I push back. She screams at me. I know I am the a-hole for not having more self-respect.
Not the a-hole. You are not wrong in this situation. I can't even believe kids act that way, let alone are allowed to act that way. I thought your wife was just putting up with it because it was her nieces and nephews, but the fact that she got mad at you when you vented, unforgivable. And why isn't she the one cleaning up? It's her family. I say, let her punish you by not having you be around when her siblings come over. That certainly sounds like the best case scenario, and she can clean it up, see how she likes it. Not to be nosy, but is this the only time you guys fight? Because she sounds unreasonable, and it's hard to imagine she's only unreasonable in this one scenario.
No, this is not the only time we fight. We fight mostly around me having an opinion she disagrees with. Kinda a one-way street in my house, for both me and my kids.
Not the a-hole. Not only would I tell your wife that this behavior is unacceptable in your home, but I would expect her to clean it. These are her family guests. There is absolutely no way I would be cleaning up after these pigs. I don't care that the kids are young. The parents ultimately have responsibility for them, and they are the pigs I am referring to.
Your wife sounds awful, and by your own admission, you fold and let her have her way because somehow her opinion is the only one that matters? I don't understand why people put up with awful spouses like this, especially if children are involved. Think about the kind of marriage and relationship you are modeling for your kids. Think about impact it will have on them. Life is too short, dude. Why are you putting up with your awful wife? Not the a-hole.
Update. Sat down with my wife today and established this behavior won't continue. We are in agreement to start with marriage counseling again. She apologized for being mean. I stood my ground that the verbal abuse won't continue.
Am I the a-hole for telling my wife I don't believe her when she says she'd be okay with us calling our daughter by different names? My 30 male wife, 29 female, is pregnant with our first child, our daughter. She's just about a month away from giving birth, and we do not have a name picked out yet. At one point we had 2 potential names on a list, but my wife told me she really didn't want to give either name to our daughter, so that was gone. Our issue comes from a difference in likes and dislikes in names. My wife likes very common, very classic names, and she likes to go a touch old-fashioned too. Her 3 favorite girls' names are Elizabeth, Esther, and Hannah. She also strongly loves the names Emily, Beatrice, Constance, Patricia, Catherine, and Geraldine. But there are many names in the same sphere she likes. My taste is a bit more mixed, but I like more uncommon names and names that aren't super used or classic, but I have some classics I like. Names I adore are Indigo Indy, Lyric, Elodie, Lyra, Dove, Sunny, Scout, Kalia. We strongly dislike the names the other strongly loves. We had the name Bryony and the name Melody on our list for a while, but my wife decided neither were names she could tolerate our daughter having, so we went back to square one. I feel like she refuses to try and find names closer to what I like, whereas the ones I suggest closer to her, like Chloe and Alana, are names she doesn't feel totally work with her taste. She said at one point she should get more of a say as the person carrying our daughter and giving birth to her, but that was dropped soon after. However, my wife has decided the fairest compromise is one picks the first and the other the middle name, and we each call her by the name we picked. So say we end up with Elizabeth Indy. She'd call her Elizabeth or a nickname from said name, and I'd call her Indy. The thing is, I'm not opposed to this entirely, but I give it a month after our daughter is born before my wife is annoyed that I don't call our daughter by her first name. And I know when she talks about the compromise she means for her choices to go in the first name spot and mine in the middle. I also know that annoyance will only grow if friends and family choose to call her Indy, and this is just an example, instead of Elizabeth. But since both would be used a lot, it could happen, and I know her 2 younger sisters would likely lean more in my taste, and so would prefer something like Indy to Elizabeth to call their niece. So I don't think the compromise would work for long. I told my wife this, and she told me she's an adult, and she would be fine. She said I have no reason to doubt her. I told her I know how much she hates not getting her way on certain things, and this is a big thing to her. She told me she'd be okay with me calling our daughter a different name. Even as she said it, she looked annoyed and like she was forcing it. I told her I didn't believe her. My wife said it's unfair not to because she knows herself better than I do. I suggested we trial it out before our daughter comes, and she was pissed about that too. Am I the a-hole?
Everyone sucks here. You know who's gonna suffer here? This poor kid who won't know her own name and will constantly have her parents forcing their preferred name on her until she's expected to pick a side. Y'all are both supposed to be adults about to have a child. You're way past the time when you can be the childish ones. Both of you put your adult undergarments on and sit yourselves down and hash this out. Pick a name you can both agree on, or put names in a hat and pick and then be done with it. Whatever works.
This. OP, listen to people. Don't let this poor child suffer because her parents were both stubborn. Everyone sucks here.
Everyone sucks here. Find a name that works for an adult, not a child. Babies are babies for mere moments of their life, and it's a 2-yes situation. Don't make it into a competition because it isn't. And for the record, I call my baby Sock most of the time, but in my language, and she has a very traditional name. Let nicknames be nicknames and names be something that works for adults. It doesn't have to be old-fashioned or super boring, but it's better to not let that child have to tell every coworker in the world, I have strange parents. My stepsister changed her name the day she turned 18 and has never looked back because her dad chose an Indian name for her. She isn't Indian, and neither is anyone she is related to.
Calling your daughter by 2 individual names would be absolutely ridiculous. If the 2 of you can't even agree on this and find a way to resolve it between you, there are likely bigger problems coming your way. Names are important, and you should absolutely both like the name to a degree, but as long as you don't hate the name, you'll grow to love your daughter and her name. A solution would be to pick a name your wife likes that allows for a nickname that you like. Beatrice becomes Bee or Trix, Catherine becomes Cat or Kitty Cat, Meredith becomes Mary, and so on. Or you both write out a list of 20 names or so, and you each have to pick at least 2 from the other list that you can live with. There are literally hundreds of thousands of names in existence. I'm sure you can both find one you can tolerate. Maybe you both really like a particular character, TV show, whatever. That means a name you wouldn't usually like, you actually do.
Sorry, but your name suggestions sound like names on My Little Pony characters.
What do you think of these stories? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories.